Ever spent hours in a huge AAA game only to realize it felt empty? These open-world games prove that a massive budget doesn't always create the most unforgettable adventure. Some of these are hidden gems, some deserve way more attention than they get, and every single one earned its spot by delivering experiences that stayed with me long after the credits rolled. Kingdom Come. Deliverance 2. I stopped thinking like a gamer and started thinking like someone who actually had to survive. Charging into a fight because I felt confident lasted about 5 seconds before I was lying in the dirt, wondering what just happened. That's when the game finally clicked. Every trip across the countryside felt like a real journey instead of another checklist on a map. I still remember following a quiet forest trail, expecting nothing, then getting pulled into a situation that completely changed the rest of my evening. Moments like that never felt scripted. They're the kind of stories you accidentally create yourself. It can be slow at first, and the realistic systems won't be everyone's favorite, but if you give it a little patience, the world starts rewarding curiosity in ways most modern AAA games don't. This isn't a world that waits for you. It's a world that keeps living whether you're ready or not. That feeling alone made it incredibly hard for me to put the controller down. I almost gave up on Outward Definitive Edition after my first few hours because it refused to hold my hand. Then I wandered too far from town, got caught out after sunset, barely survived a fight I had no business winning, and somehow made it back with just enough supplies to keep going. That's the moment I realized this game was doing something most big-budget RPGs don't even try. Every decision carries weight because failure is part of the adventure instead of a simple reload screen. Exploring feels exciting when you never know if you'll discover a hidden cave, stumble into a dangerous enemy, or find a shortcut that saves your life later. The combat can feel rough around the edges, and you'll need some patience to learn its rhythm, but that struggle makes every victory feel earned. Out here, surviving another day feels like a bigger achievement than saving the entire world. That's a feeling I wish more open-world games could capture. I never expected Days Gone Remastered to become the kind of game I'd keep thinking about after turning the console off. At first it looked like another zombie adventure, but everything changed the first time I heard a horde before I actually saw it. That sound alone was enough to make me jump back on the bike and rethink my entire plan. Riding through Oregon has this quiet tension where even a simple fuel stop can turn into a desperate escape if things go sideways. I also liked that Deacon doesn't feel like an untouchable action hero. He gets overwhelmed, makes mistakes, and sometimes the smartest move is to run instead of fight. The story takes a little while to find its rhythm, so don't expect it to hit full speed right away, but once it does, it's hard to walk away. Nothing makes your heart race quite like realizing the ground is shaking because hundreds of freakers are already chasing you. That's a memory that sticks with you long after the credits. I wasn't expecting Mad Max to hook me as much as it did, but the moment I started upgrading my car, everything changed. Every scrap of metal suddenly mattered because I knew it could turn my rusty ride into a rolling monster. There's something incredibly satisfying about spotting an enemy convoy on the horizon, slamming the gas, and watching a peaceful drive explode into pure chaos. The vehicle combat still feels surprisingly good, and every battle leaves your car looking like it barely survived, which somehow makes the victories feel even better. Outside the car, the hand-to-hand combat is solid, even if it doesn't have a ton of variety after long sessions. Still, the world itself keeps pulling you forward with abandoned camps, hidden loot, and that constant feeling that there's always something worth checking out over the next hill. In Mad Max, your car isn't just transportation. It's your best weapon, your safest shelter, and your closest friend. Very few open-world games make a vehicle feel that important. The thing that sold me on Dragon's Dogma 2 wasn't the first big monster I fought. It was what happened afterward. I wandered off in a random direction, lost track of where I was going, and somehow ended up in a battle that felt completely unscripted. My pawns were yelling different ideas, a massive creature crashed into the fight out of nowhere, and what started as a simple walk turned into one of those gaming stories you can't stop talking about. That's the magic here. The world doesn't feel like it's waiting for you to press the next objective. It keeps surprising you when you least expect it. I also love that climbing onto giant enemies never gets old. Hanging on while a monster tries to throw you off creates the kind of moments that no cutscene can match. Performance isn't perfect in every area, but the freedom and unpredictability easily outweigh those rough spots. The best quest in Dragon's Dogma 2 is usually the one you never meant to start. That's exactly why I kept coming back. I went into Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, expecting another open-world crime game, but it didn't take long to realize it had its own personality. The first street fight completely caught me off guard because punching someone through a market stall felt way more satisfying than simply pulling out a gun. Hong Kong has this energy that makes even a short drive feel worth it. I kept taking random turns just to see where they'd lead, and somehow I'd always find another shop, another side activity, or another excuse to stay out a little longer. What really stuck with me, though, was Wei Shen. Balancing life as an undercover cop while getting deeper into the criminal world gives the story real tension, and you can actually feel that pressure building as things spiral out of control. The shooting sections aren't as memorable as the hand-to-hand combat, but they never overstayed their welcome. Some open worlds give you a map to explore. Sleeping Dogs gives you a city that feels like it already knows who you are. That's why I still recommend it years later. The first thing I noticed about the Saboteur wasn't the shooting or the driving. It was how the world itself changed because of what I did. Seeing dark, occupied streets slowly come back to life after taking down enemy control gave me a reason to keep pushing forward that had nothing to do with collecting loot or chasing bigger numbers. I found myself climbing rooftops just to scout the next target, sneaking into heavily guarded areas, planting explosives, and slipping away before the entire place erupted behind me. Those moments never got old. Paris has a style that's still easy to appreciate, and the mix of stealth, sabotage, and open combat lets you handle missions however you're feeling that day. Sure, some mechanics show their age, but the core idea still feels fresh because so few games have tried anything quite like it since. Blowing something up is fun. Watching an entire neighborhood regain its spirit because of it is unforgettable. That's what kept pulling me back for one more mission.
Knob jockey.
I learned a simple rule the hard way in a dying light. If the sun is going down, you either get home fast or prepare for the longest night of your life. I still remember standing on a rooftop thinking I had plenty of time, then watching daylight disappear while every sound around me suddenly felt twice as dangerous. That's when this game becomes something completely different. During the day, exploring Heron is exciting because you're constantly parkouring across rooftops, searching abandoned buildings, and finding creative ways to deal with infected. But once night falls, confidence disappears. Even after getting stronger, I never stopped feeling that little bit of panic whenever I heard something fast closing in behind me. The melee combat stays satisfying thanks to all the different weapons you can build, even if some side missions aren't as memorable as the main experience. Most zombie games make you feel powerful. Dying Light reminds you that fear is only one sunset away. That's a feeling I never got tired of. I got way more out of ELEX 2 once I stopped trying to play it like a typical open-world RPG. The game throws you into a world that doesn't care if you're underpowered, and I actually liked that. I wandered into an area I clearly wasn't ready for, got chased across half the map, escaped with almost no health left, and somehow that disaster became one of my favorite memories. It makes every upgrade feel meaningful because you know exactly how weak you used to be. The jetpack also changes exploration in a really fun way. Reaching a rooftop or cliff that looked impossible a few minutes earlier never stopped feeling satisfying, and it encouraged me to look at the world from different angles instead of just following roads. The combat can be clunky, and it definitely takes time to get comfortable with it, but if you're willing to stick with it, there's a rewarding sense of freedom that bigger AAA RPGs often miss. ELEX 2 doesn't try to impress you in the first hour, it earns your respect over time, and that's exactly why it stayed with me. GreedFall was different when talking my way out of a problem felt just as satisfying as winning a fight. I walked into what I expected would be another routine mission, but a few careful choices completely changed how the situation played out, and it made me realize I didn't always have to solve everything with a sword. The island is full of political tension, strange creatures, and factions that all believe they're doing the right thing, so picking a side never feels as simple as choosing the obvious good or bad option. I also enjoyed how exploring new areas constantly introduced something unexpected, whether it was a hidden path, an eerie forest, or a conversation that completely changed my opinion of a character. The combat isn't the strongest part of the game, and some animations can feel a little stiff, but the role-playing more than makes up for it. The hardest battles in GreedFall aren't always fought on the battlefield. Sometimes they happen during a conversation. That's what kept me invested from start to finish. The moment, State of Decay, clicked for me wasn't after clearing a town or taking down a massive zombie. It happened when one of my favorite survivors almost didn't make it home. I had just enough fuel to get back, my backpack was packed with supplies, and every decision suddenly mattered because losing that character meant losing someone I'd spent hours building up. That's what makes this game so different. You're not just trying to stay alive. You're trying to keep an entire community going, and one bad choice can create problems that last for hours. I also love how every supply run feels unpredictable. You might leave looking for medicine and end up escaping through a window because a simple search turned into complete chaos. The combat isn't the deepest around, but the constant pressure keeps every trip outside interesting. In State of Decay 2, the real victory isn't surviving today, it's making sure everyone has a chance to survive tomorrow. Few open-world games create that kind of tension so naturally. I had pretty low expectations before starting Biomutant. And maybe that's why it surprised me so much. The first thing that pulled me in wasn't the combat. It was wandering off the main path and finding strange little places that made the world feel genuinely curious and worth exploring. One minute I was climbing through the ruins of an old factory, and the next I was gliding across a colorful landscape that looked completely different from where I'd started. I also had a lot of fun mixing different weapons together because every new combination made fights feel fresh without forcing me into one playstyle. The story doesn't always land, and the narrator can be a little too talkative at times, but the freedom to experiment kept me coming back. Biomutant feels like the kind of game that rewards players who enjoy getting lost more than reaching the destination. It may not be perfect, but it's proof that creativity can leave a bigger impression than a blockbuster budget. And that's my list of open-world games that genuinely deserve more attention than a lot of big-budget AAA releases. Some of these games take risks, some have rough edges, but every one of them gave me memories that plenty of bigger titles never could. If you've played any of these, let me know which one was your favorite, and if there's another underrated open-world game that deserves a spot, drop it in the comments because I'm always looking for something new to play. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more gaming content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.